The coffee pot shattered against the diner floor, ceramic pieces scattering like my broken heart suddenly becoming whole again. Emma's face, my sister's face, stared back at me with eyes that were mirrors of my own, and 17 years of emptiness collapsed into nothing. "Sarah?" Her voice cracked like she was afraid I might disappear. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease faded as everything else in the Harborview diner became background noise. My hands were shaking, my chest tight with emotions I didn't have names for. She dropped the dish rag she'd been holding and took a tentative step toward me. "Is it really you?" That's when the dam broke. 17 years of feeling like half a person, of setting 2 coffee cups without knowing why, of waking up from dreams about a little girl's laugh I couldn't place, it all made sense in that instant. Emma. The name fell from my lips like a prayer I'd been trying to remember my whole life. She ran then, dodging tables and chairs, her waitress apron flying behind her. We collided in the middle of that small-town diner in a hug that erased nearly 2 decades of separation. Her hair smelled like vanilla and hope, and she was real, solid and warm and alive in my arms. "I never stopped looking for you," she whispered against my shoulder, her tears soaking through my jacket. Never stopped believing I'd find my little sister. My throat burned with unshed tears. I knew something was missing. I always knew. The other customers were staring, but I didn't care. My sister, was holding me like she'd never let go again, and for the first time in 32 years, I felt complete. That Misdelivered package hadn't just found its way to me. It had brought my family home. My life in Portland was everything I'd worked to build, predictable, controlled, successful. At 32, I had the corner office overlooking the Willamette River, a pristine apartment in the Pearl District with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows, and a salary that let me buy whatever I wanted. The problem was, I never seemed to want much of anything. My mornings followed the same ritual, coffee at 6:47 a.m. while NPR murmured in the background, checking emails before my feet touched the hardwood floor. I'd perfected the art of efficiency. Greek yogurt with berries for breakfast, 15-minute meditation using an app, then off to my marketing director job at a tech startup where I managed campaigns for products I barely used. Friends called my apartment modern minimalist. Clean lines, neutral colors, everything in its place. But sometimes I'd catch myself pausing in the kitchen, holding 2 coffee mugs without remembering why I'd taken them down. I'd stand there, confused, then put the second one back with a strange ache in my chest. My coworkers invited me to happy hours, weekend hiking trips, birthday parties. I went, laughed at the right moments, contributed to conversations about Netflix shows and dating apps. But there was always this invisible wall between me and everyone else, like I was watching their lives through glass. "You're so put together, Sarah," my friend Melissa would say during our monthly brunches. "I wish I had your focus." But focus felt more like emptiness. I'd lie awake some nights feeling like I was searching for something I'd lost but couldn't name. My therapist, Dr. Chen, suggested it stemmed from my adoption. "It's normal for adoptees to feel a sense of incompleteness," she'd say gently. "Even when they've had loving families." And I had been loved. My adoptive parents, Robert and Linda, were wonderful people who gave me every opportunity. But they'd always been vague about my life before them, saying only that I'd been very young and it was better to focus on the future. Still, fragments would surface in dreams, a little girl's giggle, the feeling of small fingers braiding my hair, whispered conversations under blankets. I'd wake with tears on my cheeks, mourning someone I couldn't remember. I threw myself into work instead, building campaigns that connected people to products they didn't know they needed. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days helping others find what they were missing while I couldn't identify what I was missing myself. Weekends were the hardest. I'd wander Powell's bookstore for hours, gravitating toward the children's section without knowing why. Or I'd find myself at the Saturday market, watching families with multiple kids, feeling a strange pang when I saw sisters walking arm in arm. "Maybe you should try online dating again," Melissa suggested over mimosas. Get out there, meet someone special. But how could I explain that it wasn't romantic love I was searching for? It was something deeper, more fundamental, like I was living my life with one eye closed, missing half the picture. Some evenings I'd sit on my apartment balcony, watching the sunset paint the city gold, and wonder if somewhere out there, someone else was feeling this same inexplicable loneliness. If maybe, just maybe, they were thinking about me too. The doorbell rang at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, jarring me out of a Zoom call about quarterly projections. I muttered an apology to my team and muted myself, padding to the front door in my wool socks. The delivery driver looked exhausted, early 20s, baseball cap pulled low, dark circles under his eyes like he'd been working double shifts. His scanner beeped as he held up a medium-sized box wrapped in brown paper. Sarah Mitchell? That's me. I reached for my phone to sign digitally, but he was already extending a stylus attached to his tablet. Sender said it was important. Sign here, please. I scrawled my signature, barely glancing at the screen until he was walking away. That's when I noticed the return address printed on the package label, E. Mitchell, Sacramento, California. My stomach did a small flip. Mitchell was my last name, but I didn't know anyone in Sacramento. Hell, I didn't know any other Mitchells anywhere. My adoptive parents had told me our family tree was small, just the three of us. The package was heavier than I'd expected, substantial in a way that suggested something meaningful inside. The brown paper was slightly crinkled, like it had traveled far, and there was something about the handwriting that made my chest tighten. Careful cursive in blue ink, the kind of penmanship they don't teach anymore. A yellow sticky note was attached to the top corner, and my breath caught when I read it, "Keep safe, E.M." M. Those initials stirred something deep in my memory, like an echo from a dream I couldn't quite recall. I stood there in my doorway, holding this mystery, feeling the weight of it in my hands. The rational part of my brain said to check the address again, maybe call the delivery company. It obviously wasn't meant for me, wrong first initial, wrong city. The right thing to do would be to send it back. But my fingers traced over that careful handwriting, and something in my chest whispered that maybe, just maybe, this package had found exactly who it was supposed to find. I closed the door and set the package on my kitchen counter, where it seemed to pulse with possibility, waiting. I waited until after work to open it. Something about the package demanded ceremony, demanded my full attention. I ordered Thai takeout, poured a glass of wine, and cleared my kitchen table like I was preparing for surgery. The brown paper peeled away carefully, revealing a weathered shoebox underneath. The kind that holds childhood treasures, scuffed corners, faded floral pattern on the lid. My hands were trembling as I lifted it. The box was surprisingly light, filled with tissue paper that rustled softly as I pushed it aside. What I found underneath stopped my breath completely. A child's friendship bracelet made of pink and purple beads, the elastic stretched and frayed with age. A Polaroid photograph, edges yellow and curled, showing two little girls building a sandcastle. One looked about 5, the other 7, both with identical dark hair and gap-toothed grins. My chest tightened as I stared at that photo. The older girl looked familiar in a way that made my skin prickle. Beneath it was a handwritten letter on lined paper, the kind kids use in elementary school. The same careful cursive from the package label, but smaller, shakier. "Dear Emma, I will never forget you. I promise I will find you someday. Love, Sarah." Sarah. My name, in my own childhood handwriting. But it was the last item that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. A small stuffed elephant, gray and worn, with one button eye missing and a red ribbon around its neck that had faded to pink. My hands shook as I picked it up. The fabric was soft from years of hugging, and the moment my fingers touched it, memories exploded through my mind like fireworks. Peanut. The elephant's name was Peanut. I could suddenly remember everything, a little girl with my face but older, braiding my hair on a narrow bed. Whispering stories about elephants who never forgot. Promising we'd always be sisters, no matter what the grown-ups said. Emma. The name escaped my lips like a prayer I'd forgotten I knew. We'd been separated. The foster care system had torn us apart, told me I was too young to remember, that it would be easier if I started fresh. But Emma had remembered. Emma had kept our childhood treasures safe all these years. My sister. I had a sister. The realization hit me like a physical blow. All those mornings setting 2 coffee mugs. All those dreams about a girl's laugh. All that inexplicable loneliness, it wasn't random. It was grief. I'd been mourning Emma without knowing her name. I clutched Peanut to my chest and sobbed. 17 years of feeling incomplete suddenly made perfect sense. My sister was out there somewhere, and she'd been looking for me. The yellow sticky notes message took on new meaning. Keep safe, EM. Emma. My sister Emma, who'd promised never to forget, who'd somehow tracked down my address and sent me proof that our childhood was real. I had to find her. I called in sick the next morning and drove straight to Sacramento, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. 4 hours on I-5 to chase a ghost, to find someone I wasn't even sure still existed. But that photo, that elephant, they were proof that Emma was real, that our childhood together hadn't been some elaborate dream. The return address led me to Sunset Gardens Apartments, a modest complex with beige stucco walls and palm trees that had seen better days. The manager, Mrs. Rodriguez, had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and flour dusting her cardigan. Emma Mitchell? She studied the photo I showed her, the one of us building sandcastles. Oh yes, sweet girl. Quiet, but she had this sadness about her, you know? Always talking about finding her sister. My heart hammered. When did she move out? 2 months ago. Paid her lease through the end but said she couldn't stay. Left a forwarding address with the post office. She paused, studying my face. You look just like her, honey. Are you the sister she was searching for? I nodded, not trusting my voice. The forwarding address led to U-Store-It, a self-storage facility across town. The attendant, a teenager with purple hair, shook his head when I showed him Emma's name. She only kept the unit for a month. Came back, loaded everything into a beat-up Honda, and left this address in case anyone came asking. He handed me a slip of paper. Said someone important might come looking. The next address was Maggie's Cafe, a small place with checkered tablecloths and the smell of cinnamon rolls. The owner, a man with flour-dusted hands and a warm smile, lit up when I mentioned Emma. She worked here for 6 weeks this summer. Hardest worker I ever had, but Lord, that girl carried some heavy baggage. Every break, she'd be on her phone calling shelters, hospitals, social services, anywhere that might have records of her sister Sarah. He disappeared into the back and returned with a folded piece of paper. She left this when she quit. Said if anyone ever came looking for her, to give them this. Guess she knew you'd find your way here eventually. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. Emma's careful cursive filled the page. If you're reading this, it means you got the package and you remember. We were separated when I was 9 and you were 7. They told us it was temporary, then for the best, then finally that we were both better off starting fresh. I aged out of foster care at 18 and started looking for you immediately. 15 years of dead ends, Sarah. 15 years of caseworkers saying your records were sealed, that you'd moved on. I'm not giving up. I'm working at Harborview Diner in Astoria now, it's close to Portland, and I'm hoping maybe, somehow, fate will bring us together. I miss my little sister every single day. If you find this letter, please come find me. Room 12 at the Seaside Motel. I'll wait as long as it takes. Love, Emma. Astoria. She was 40 minutes from me. 40 minutes from Portland, and I'd been living there for 8 years, feeling incomplete, never knowing my sister was right there. My hands shook as I folded the letter. All this time, she'd been searching while I'd been trying to forget. But she'd never stopped believing we'd find each other again. I sat in my car outside the Harbor View Diner for 20 minutes, engine running, staring through the rain-streaked windshield at the small building with its faded blue awning. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. Through the windows, I could see her moving between tables, a woman about my age with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a green uniform dress and white sneakers. Something about the way she moved, the tilt of her head when she listened to customers, made my chest ache with recognition. I pulled out my phone and called the diner. "Harbor View, this is Emma." The voice hit me like lightning. I knew that voice, older now, worn by years, but underneath it was the same gentle tone that used to whisper bedtime stories and promise we'd always be sisters. Hi. My voice came out as a croak. "I'm looking for Emma Mitchell." "That's me. How can I help you?" Through the window, I watched her pause, phone pressed to her ear, and something in her posture changed. Alert. Hopeful. I got a package. From Sacramento. With your initials. She dropped something, I heard it clatter in the background. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "What did you say your name was?" "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell." The phone went silent except for the sound of her breathing. I watched through the window as she sank into the nearest booth, her free hand pressed against her mouth. "Sarah?" The name broke on her lips. "My Sarah? My little sister Sarah?" Tears streamed down my face as 17 years of emptiness suddenly filled with purpose. "Emma. Oh God, Emma, I remember. I remember everything." "The elephant," she whispered. "Did you get Peanut?" "Yes." I was sobbing now, not caring who might see. "I remember giving him to you the night before they separated us. You said elephants never forget, and neither would we. I kept him safe for you. I kept everything safe." Through the window, I could see her crying too, customers staring as she sat in that booth with the phone pressed to her ear like a lifeline. "Where are you?" she asked. "Outside." She looked up then, scanning the parking lot until her eyes found my car. Even through the rain and distance, even after 17 years, I knew those eyes. They were the same ones that had watched over me when I was little, the same ones I saw in my own reflection every morning. She stood up slowly, never taking her eyes off me, and walked to the window. We stared at each other across the space between us, my sister, who'd never stopped looking, and me, who'd never stopped missing her without knowing why. "Emma?" My voice was barely audible. She pressed her hand against the glass. "Come inside, little sister. Come home." That's when I knew. The package hadn't been misdelivered at all. It had found exactly who it was meant to find. I hung up the phone and sat frozen in my car, watching Emma through the diner window as she wiped her eyes with a napkin. She kept looking toward the parking lot, toward me, like she was afraid I might disappear. My hand hovered over the door handle, but I couldn't make myself move. What if this was a mistake? What if 17 years had changed us into strangers who only shared DNA and childhood memories? What if the sister I remembered, the one who braided my hair and promised we'd always find each other, what if she didn't exist anymore? I thought about all the foster families Emma must have lived with, all the disappointments and heartbreaks that shaped her into whoever she was now. What if she blamed me for not remembering sooner? What if she was angry that I'd gotten adopted while she'd aged out of the system alone? My therapist's voice echoed in my head, "Sometimes our deepest fears aren't about what might go wrong, Sarah. They're about what might go right, and what that would demand of us." Through the rain, I watched Emma pour coffee for a customer, her movements automatic while her eyes kept drifting back to the window. She was waiting for me to walk through that door. She'd been waiting for 17 years. But what did I have to offer her? A successful career, yes, but what about everything else? I'd built my life around being alone, around not needing anyone. Emma probably imagined I'd grown up in some perfect adoptive family, surrounded by love and support. How could I tell her about the loneliness? About feeling incomplete for most of my adult life? What if we were too different now? What if we sat across from each other in that diner and had nothing to say? What if the connection I felt looking at those childhood photos was just nostalgia, not real love? I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to stop the spiral of doubt. But then I remembered Peanut, remembered how holding that little elephant had unlocked something in my heart I'd kept buried for decades. I remembered the friendship bracelet, made by child hands that trusted completely. I remembered the letter I'd written, "I will never forget you." 7-year-old me had made a promise. She'd believed in something beautiful and pure, that love between sisters could survive anything. Who was I to break that promise now, to let fear win when hope was standing right there in a green uniform dress, waiting? Emma had spent 15 years actively searching for me while I'd spent those same years feeling lost. She'd kept our memories alive while I'd let others convince me to forget. The least I could do was be brave enough to walk 20 feet across a parking lot. I thought about going back to Portland, returning to my empty apartment and my predictable routine. I could pretend this never happened, file it away as a beautiful coincidence. But I knew I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed again. Emma was my door back to the part of myself I'd lost. I took a deep breath, grabbed the door handle, and stepped out into the rain. The bell above the diner door chimed as I stepped inside, and Emma looked up from the coffee pot she'd been holding. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other across the small restaurant, two women in our 30s, but in that moment I felt 7 years old again. She set the pot down with shaking hands and whispered, "Sarah?" "Hi, Emma." Then she was moving, dodging tables and chairs, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum floor. We met in the middle of the diner, and when she threw her arms around me, 17 years of emptiness collapsed into wholeness. She smelled like vanilla and coffee and home. Her hair was softer than I remembered, but her hug was exactly the same, fierce and protective, like she was afraid someone might try to take me away again. "I can't believe you're real," she sobbed against my shoulder. "I can't believe you're here." "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry I forgot. I'm sorry I didn't look for you." She pulled back, gripping my shoulders, her eyes searching my face. "You were 7, Sarah. 7. They told you to forget, and you were just a baby trying to survive. But you remembered everything. You kept looking. Because I was older. Because forgetting you would have killed me." Her voice broke. "Do you know how many Sarah Mitchells I found over the years? How many dead ends, how many times I thought I'd finally found you only to meet a stranger?" I touched her face, still unable to believe she was real. "The package. You sent 15 packages?" She laughed through her tears. 15 different Sarah Mitchells in Oregon. Yours was the only one that didn't come back returned to sender. I knew, somehow I knew it had to be you. We sat in a corner booth, holding hands across the table like we were afraid the other might disappear. Emma's shift manager, a kind woman named Beth, brought us coffee and tissues without being asked. "Tell me about your life," Emma said. "Are you happy? Do you have a family?" I thought I was happy, I said honestly. But I always felt like something was missing. Like I was living with one eye closed, you know? She nodded. "I used to dream about you. Dream that you were calling my name, but I could never find you. I dreamed about someone braiding my hair. Someone singing lullabies. It was you, wasn't it?" "Hush little baby," she sang softly, and my heart nearly stopped. That voice, that melody, it had been the soundtrack to my earliest memories. "I work at a marketing firm in Portland," I said. "Nice apartment, good job, but it all feels empty now. Like I was just marking time until this moment. I've been a waitress, a hotel clerk, a dozen other jobs. Always in towns close to Portland because something told me you were there. I could never leave Oregon, even when opportunities came up elsewhere. It was like my heart knew you were close. The afternoon dissolved around us as we filled in 17 years of separation. She showed me pictures on her phone of graduation from community college, various apartments, the storage unit where she'd kept our childhood things safe. "I never got married," she said quietly. "Never even came close. How could I commit to anyone when half my heart was missing?" I squeezed her hands. "We're going to fix this, Em. We're going to make up for lost time." "Promise?" she asked, and suddenly she was 9 years old again, asking me to promise we'd always be sisters. "I promise," I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. "Elephants never forget, right?" She smiled, the same gap-toothed grin from our childhood photo, though her teeth were straight now. "Never." That was 6 months ago, and I'm telling you, everything changed. Not just the big things, but the small moments that make up a life. Like how I wake up every morning to the sound of Emma humming in the kitchen, making coffee for both of us. No more standing there confused with 2 mugs in my hands. Now I know exactly why I need them. She moved in with me 3 weeks after we found each other. I know that sounds fast, but when you've been missing half your heart for 17 years, you don't waste time on formalities. My pristine apartment, the one friends called modern minimalist, is now full of Emma's paintings scattered across every surface, her terrible attempts at sourdough starter taking over my kitchen counter, and her laugh echoing off walls that used to feel like a tomb. You have to understand, I'd convinced myself I was complete. I had my career, my routine, my carefully constructed life. But living with Emma is like discovering I'd been surviving on half-breaths my entire adult life. Now I can finally fill my lungs. We cook together every Sunday. She's teaching me recipes our foster mother used to make before we were separated. Last week, we spent 3 hours making pierogies from scratch, flour everywhere, laughing until our sides hurt. I haven't laughed like that since I was 7. The nightmares stopped. You know those dreams I mentioned, about searching for someone I couldn't find? They're gone. Instead, I dream about the future now, vacations Emma and I will take, holidays we'll celebrate together, maybe even meeting someone special who'll love us both as a package deal. People at work say I'm different. Melissa, my brunch friend, told me I seem lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying invisible weight I'd finally put down. She's right. I spent 32 years feeling like I was living someone else's life, going through motions that didn't quite fit. Now everything fits. Emma found a job at a small gallery downtown, selling paintings that remind her of our childhood, bright colors, hopeful scenes. She's talented in ways I never got to discover as kids. Every piece tells a story about resilience, about believing in things you can't see. But here's what really gets me, she never gave up. While I was building walls and convincing myself I didn't need anyone, she was sending packages to strangers, keeping childhood treasures safe in storage units, working jobs in towns close to Portland because her heart knew I was nearby. That kind of faith changes you. It makes you believe in miracles again, in the idea that the universe might actually be conspiring to bring people together instead of keeping them apart. I look at my life now, our life, and I'm grateful for every wrong turn that led us back to each other. Grateful for the delivery driver who brought me the wrong package. Grateful for Emma's stubborn refusal to let me go. We're planning to find our old foster families, to piece together more of our story. But honestly, the past doesn't hurt anymore. When you have your person back, everything else becomes just chapters in a story that was always leading to this moment. Some people spend their whole lives looking for their missing piece. I found mine in a misdelivered package. So yes, that Tuesday at 2:17 p.m., I thought I was just signing for a stranger's delivery. I had no idea that brown paper package would shatter 17 years of loneliness in the most beautiful way possible. I keep that delivery receipt in my wallet now, right next to the photo of Emma and me as kids building sandcastles. Sometimes I take it out and stare at my scribbled signature, amazed at how casual I was in that moment, just another interruption in a Zoom meeting, Another item to deal with before getting back to my perfectly ordered, perfectly empty life. Emma says it wasn't a mistake at all. She believes the universe spent 17 years orchestrating that exact moment, the right delivery driver, the right address mix-up, the right day when I was home to answer the door. Some packages are meant to find their way, she tells me when we're curled up on my couch, watching movies and sharing the popcorn I never bought when I lived alone. That little stuffed elephant, Peanut, sits on our kitchen counter now, watching over our morning coffee ritual. One button I'm missing, red ribbon faded to pink, but still keeping the promise Emma made when we were children, that elephants never forget, and neither would we. I think about all the Sarah Mitchells who received packages they weren't expecting, who probably threw them away or returned them unopened. But mine found me at exactly the right moment, when I was finally ready to remember what I'd spent 32 years trying to forget. The best deliveries, it turns out, are the ones that weren't supposed to be yours in the first place. Sometimes the universe wraps your missing piece in brown paper and hands it to you through the kindness of a tired delivery driver who just wants to finish his route. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, that misdelivered package doesn't just bring back what you lost, it delivers you home.